This wrong. I don't know what that was. We'll do the roll. I'm here. Deb Janick,
Present.
Tom Haley,
Present.
Ruth Hallenbeck,
Present.
Jennifer Joslin,
Present.
Brendan McNally,
Present.
Jennifer Ashley,
Present.
Sherry Aker,
Present.
Mike Dakotas is not here. Joe Souza,
Present.
Tom Hamilton.
Present.
Donna, are you with us?
She did sign
I
on.
am here.
Okay, good.
Okay.
You can hear us okay, everything?
Yep. Everything sounds great.
Excellent. Okay, two things. I got two people tell me that they were a little annoyed that we wandered off. We jumped around a little bit too much last meeting and would prefer that we follow the line items as listed in the agenda. So I will make an effort to do that. Sherry Aker made a point that if we turned off our individual videos, when you want to say something, if you turn it back on, that might be a better visual clue than, since I've proven that I don't notice people want to speak too quick.
I actually prefer to see people that I'm in the meeting with.
Okay, well, it was just brought up, so
It's
I
just
guess
what
if
my
we-
husband does with their meeting. They have a lot of people and it's easier. It makes it clear to the host that someone wants to speak or has something to say.
but
That's
I'll
all.
try to,
Because we're not even in person, and that was like one of the benefits of Zoom, is to be able to see
Yep.
who
You
you're with.
You guys don't have to do that. It was just a suggestion.
well, you would, while you were speaking, you would obviously, your picture would be in front of us, so. I just brought it up, so if you care to mute your video portion, and when you turn it on, I notice to do so, and if not, that's fine too. Okay, so we're going to continue. The first item on the agenda is continued discussion of the budget docket. Line items in view of new information, if you will. So Chris Cotta, do you have anything
I
new and
do.
bad to tell us?
I do. As of very late this afternoon, actually just before this meeting, after many consultations with many people in the state and with our town council president, she has signed Executive Order 2020-10, which delays the financial town referendum yet again till 65 days after the passage of the state budget. So that will then provide enough guidance and information to move forward with the information that comes out of the state legislature.
Thank you,
There are a
Chris.
variety of reasons why it needed to be done, but it's been very difficult to get information for us to actually put this together. As an aside, there is a movement afoot to have the legislature also offer, as a legislative enactment, the ability for any town that needs to levy 1/4 under the existing tax levy. So whatever the rate is now, we would levy for 1/4, make an adjustment after the FTR and bill out for the remaining 3/4.
This is excellent news. I think everybody will
Well,
agree.
I think so, but I know some people would like to see it move forward, but it's like, I just think, we could do this, but you're gonna wind up revisiting the entire thing when it's done, so you might as well take the stab at the apple and do it correctly at first. I still, it is what it is. I just think you'll have much better information to work with. And you'll be much more comfortable making a vote and a decision, moving it forward for the taxpayers to do it at an FTR.
Thank you, Chris. So I'm going to take a position on this. It doesn't require debate. It doesn't require comment. We just received the information and it is what it is.
Jay,
Yes, Joe.
How do we assume that we're not gonna get the aid that we did?
We don't know what we're gonna get.
But I'm saying, we're gonna tax at the same rate,
Mhm.
Only for 1 quarter, Joe.
but we're not gonna get the aid for that 1 quarter from the state.
Correct.
No.
So how can we tax? That means that we have to make up all the aid if we don't
So-
receive it from the state.
Joe,
Joe.
you're not gonna receive all the aid in 1 quarter.
We're gonna receive the same amount that we did for the schools for the first quarter of the next fiscal year from the state.
We don't know that.
That's what I mean. So how can we tax at that rate? If that would mean that we have to make up all the state aid that doesn't come in.
Joe, it's nothing more than an ability to have cash flow for the first quarter of the year. You're going to adjust all of it after the FTR to create the appropriate levy.
And then we'll have to have draconian cuts because we'll have to make up where the state aid isn't there. We need to address the first quarter of the year and take out the state aid that we're not going to get before we.
But Joe, we don't know what that number is, and we won't know until after the legislature acts.
We can pretty much guess that we're probably going to get, a little
No, we
more
can't.
than half.
Okay,
Oh, yes, we
listen.
can. Look, my only point is this. If we set a tax rate, or we continue the same tax rate, but we don't get that portion of the 17 million we get from the state for that one.
We
for the
don't get
quarter.
17 million, Joe.
I thought we got a total of 17 million from the
We
state
get
all
12.
went out.
We get 12.
Okay, all right. So if we don't get, I don't know how I got 17 in my head. If we don't get that first portion, which is what? That part of that 4 million for the first quarter. Where does that money come from? For the schools?
Listen,
Four
here-
quarters. There's
I-
4 quarters, it's 3 million per quarter.
I think it'll also give you the opportunity
we
to
were
find
getting-
out if we're gonna get any stimulus coming in as well. If we wait and with, there's gonna be school aid through the federal government, then stimulus for them, because they've been talking about that as well. Where if we hold off, we might have a better idea of what those numbers look like.
Look, I understand that part. My only question is, the money that we would have got from the state is not gonna come now. So if the school keeps spending at the same rate and the town keeps spending at the same rate, then we get to the FTR eventually for the last 3 quarters. We're gonna be short not only the 3 quarters coming ahead, but the quarter we already spent. That's how I see it.
all right, as I tried to make the point at our last meeting, if the town council, I didn't put it this way, but if the town council were to move the FTR yet again beyond June 30th, which takes us into the next fiscal year, without the state giving us the ability to carry forward the existing tax rate levy for 1 quarter, then we would have been spending with absolutely no revenue coming in, and that would be bad. So what has happened now is the state has given us the approval to carry forward into the first quarter of 21, the tax levy that exists at this
Well,
present time.
that's not law yet. That still has to be enacted into law.
But you're pretty sure they're going to do it.
We're pretty positive that's going to happen.
All right. So now that the was the town council president or the town
Town council
council?
president. Only the president can actually effectuate.
So
executive
she's
orders.
done it. She's done it under the emergency provisions. So now that that has happened, we're going to continue to be able to spend. And Joe has a valid point in a way, but we have no clue what we're going to get, when we're going to get, or how we're going to get it.
Correct.
There's just no way to predict that. So just cut is not going to do us any good either. So our best position right now is to just move forward with what we know and what we got. But we're not going to do anything more with the budget as it is now. What we can do tonight is do what we scheduled to do and do the resolutions. The resolutions aren't really going to be affected by what happens going forward.
Well, they
Yes,
could-
Ruth.
They could be affected a little bit, like we took off number 12, like you said. You took off resolution number 12, and we probably will all agree to vote that. But I mean, definitely Joe has a point, and when we get to the last 3 quarters budget, that will be affected by whatever happens and whatever aid comes in. It could be that budgets have to go way down. All kinds of things could happen because of this quarter. This quarter does have a major effect on the other 3 quarters budget. That's clear. They may have to
Yes,
go
it
way
is.
down. And also one more point. What's the wise thing to do when you don't know things in your budget that are coming? Do you just keep the high ticket items in your household? You're going to buy new furniture? No, what you do is you don't do any spending. You keep your spending down. That's the wise course. And we'll see how this goes. We'll see if wisdom is used or not. Okay, so far I'm not completely impressed this year, but we'll see, because that's the wise course. When you don't know what's happening, then you need to be very careful. And I'm just saying it strongly because, you know, people are saying, well, we don't want to change this or that. I mean, this is a unique, terrible crisis.
Yep,
So,
we all know that.
all right, and it's for 1 year, right, Jen? So 1 year isn't
And
going, right.
we're all looking at making the budget as slim as we can.
yeah, thanks, Jen.
So Ruth, Chris has already directed all the department heads to eliminate all discretionary spending.
Mm-hmm.
What else would you like to eliminate? Should we fire all the police and firemen?
No, I didn't say anything like that, Jay. That's ridiculous. What
Okay,
I'm saying is that you can't just be careful talking about, you know, it's going to be the same in the next, after this quarter. It's going to be a lot of repercussions. That's what I'm just,
we all know that,
Okay.
and all 11 of us are going to be in the thick of it because our budget cycle isn't over yet. We're not done. We'll
All
be
of our
doing this in,
all
we
of
could
our
be doing this in August.
all of our vacations are canceled, right? Okay.
Yeah, I wanted to leave town, but I can't. Yes, Jennifer.
So a question to Chris, as of now, we don't know when the 55-day mark is. Is that correct? We don't know when the state will have a number to give the town.
It's 65 days, just so that I'm clear.
65, thank you.
It'll become effect as soon as the state budget is passed.
Which we don't know when that will be.
No, but historically, there are rare occasions it has gone past June, but historically it has been done before June 30th.
So it could be September.
I would highly doubt it.
Okay.
The state,
I'm
don't forget,
thinking
don't
August
forget,
15th.
the
But
state also has to operate, and it will be very difficult for it to operate without a budget as well.
okay. So,
Jay,
Jen Johnson.
you know, the other part is that sometimes that some of the information that we work with that aren't actual numbers, we might have come to that point. Like we'll have at that point, school enrollment numbers, we'll have state aid numbers, which are sometimes, you know, guessed upon. It might actually give us, be more beneficial to us to have some firmer numbers on that side.
Oh, absolutely. Who we got, Brendan, or are you guys just making noise? You lit up.
That's the problem with it.
Ruth,
Yes.
you're lit up.
No, I think it's fine to just wave hands. Can you see all of our faces at once, Jay? I was just curious.
Yeah,
Okay.
I got all of you,
Okay.
except Sherry. She's going to do what she wanted. There she is.
She's waving her hand.
Yeah, I got her.
I was waving my hand, but it's okay. I don't think I just like I really am concerned about you know, the having compassion for the taxpayer and making sure that we think about all these businesses that have lost revenue and everybody that is not got a job and, you know, not, it may not be able to pay their mortgages, much less their tax bill. So I think we just need to make sure we keep them in mind. And I honestly don't know. I mean, I am not understanding what the difference between deciding to, I don't think we're going to get a lot of the revenue from what it sounds like. It doesn't sound like the government is going to give any kind of stimulus besides COVID stuff to the states or cities or towns. So, you know, for much else other than some of the COVID stuff, I get that the school might get some money, but I just don't know that it's not a good idea to at least try to bring that budget down, you know, just because I think we're going to still end up having to bring it down. So at some point, but that's my opinion.
Jay, I agree with her because, and we can practice taking things out that we all agree upon, other than what we've already, you know, Chris and everyone has already taken out. Just practice on some of the things that are clear, that what everybody agrees on taking out. And, you know, to Tom Haley's spreadsheet, we have those options there, just an idea. I mean, I know you want to do the resolution, so I'm not going to hold it up.
Deb Janick.
Can we just cut to the resolutions? You know, we're going to get more information later. We can make more sound decisions. We're just whirling around this.
I'm not whirling around. I was.
So I'm not, Ruth, it's my turn.
Yeah.
So we're whirling.
Characterize that.
Ruth, please stop. We're just going round and round, and I think that we need to wait until we have more sound numbers.
And I disagree. We can discuss when we need to discuss. Thank you.
All right. So is anybody opposed to doing resolutions?
Sounds good.
All right, let's do that. So have you all got the resolutions in front of you, or can you see
Yes.
them? So we have,
Jay, did you want to make sure Ruth has, knows that the number 12 was not actually passed?
oh yeah, Ruth, you weren't, you came in late.
No, I just said it earlier, that 12's off the list, right? That's what you said last time.
No, so just to be clear, when I sent everybody a list of 12 resolutions a month ago or 6 weeks ago, whatever it was, it's like I said, in previous years, there was a resolution to take stamp tax money, conveyance tax money, some percentage of it, and dedicate it to open space to be used by the open space committee to purchase land. Last year, that was eliminated. Number 12, I re-entered, put it on the bottom of the list as number 12, in the hope that I could get that resolution reintroduced and put on the, voted for at the FDR. Based on what has been happening now, I am not going to do that unless somebody else cares to do it. But I don't think it's going to do us much good. So that's what number 12 was. Last year it wasn't approved. It wasn't considered at all.
Jay,
Yes.
just real quick on that, just when you calculate how much open space saves our town, I mean, every house lot, with 2 kids, we know what that costs us with the schools. So I would agree with that, but I think next year I'll still be here. Maybe we could put it back on next year.
Attaboy, Joe.
Times are better.
Yeah, people know I'm not going to discuss my feelings about open space or why I think it's a good idea at this time, because I don't think we're even going to entertain it. Brendan.
Yep, I apologize. The resolutions that I went through were the ones that Mike Dakota sent around to us, which were the ones that passed. How
That's
different are those?
That's what we're looking at.
Okay, but they're numbered like the ones that I have are 1 through 6, which is what the town council submitted, and then there's 1 through 8 with the budget committee.
Yeah, that's what I was that's what I started to say. We have two sets of resolutions here. One from the town council last year and one
Yeah.
from us. And some of them are duplicates, some passed, some failed.
Right. But when you say,
Chris, I'm
when you
sorry.
say number
Okay.
12, I don't know what's number 12.
I sent an email to everybody with a list of resolutions some time ago. So
Okay.
that's how it got, just forget number 12.
Okay.
Moving
It
on.
didn't exist in the last FTR. And like I said, I wrote it. I was going to try to reintroduce it this year. It's not going to fly. Chris got it.
So as it relates to the council resolutions, I did speak to the council president about the potential of any council resolutions. And she explained that due to the whole COVID thing, that the council never really got to formally act on what it is that they would like to do, but they probably will be resolutions coming forward.
Okay, so
Jay,
Who
we
we got?
lost Deb. She's trying to reconnect.
okay. We'll give her a few minutes. There she is. Hey, Deb. Okay, so if you all look at,
We can't hear you, Deb.
she's
Sorry,
muted.
I was muted. I lost connection there for a bit.
Okay, so the town council resolutions that were passed at FY20 FTR were number 1. Want me to read these things out?
Does everyone
Resolve
have
that,
a copy?
I'm sorry?
Does everyone have a copy?
Yes.
That's
Well,
all right.
I have a copy of the 12 that Jay sent out in an email. I don't have the other copy.
Okay, well, most of the one, okay, let's start with number 1. Resolve that with regard to the sale of any one or group of parcels within the Tiverton Industrial Park up to and including the entire industrial park, 25% of the proceeds from each sale shall be set aside in a restricted account used solely for the purpose of developing the park, including but not limited to providing a town financial match for federal and state grants, development of infrastructure such as utilities or roads, or the professional engineering costs associated with such activities. Funds remaining in this restricted account at the end of, I'm going to change the dates, June 30th, 2020, shall be carried over into the same account for fiscal year 2021. This is a resolution that we have all the time. Does anybody have any questions about it, not understand what it says? Joe Souza.
I understand it, but I don't want to put it on the ballot this year. In fact, I'd like to see that money just roll into the general fund that's there now. We had talked about that. It's up to other, I guess, members, but I seriously think we should just leave this one off the ballot this year.
Well, I sent a question to the town solicitor, specifically asking him if we had an existing resolution and if for this coming fiscal year, 2021, if we did not put it on the ballot, was it dead? And what would happen with the funds that were in that account? And I haven't got a response.
Would roll into the general fund because it wouldn't be restricted anymore.
I
It has to be
don't know
restricted
that.
each year. We've already been through that. That's why when they were getting the money from open space and it didn't be repeated to put on the ballot, that's on the FTR ballot. That's why, I don't know if you heard that controversy a while back. If it's not on the ballot, it's not restricted, people don't vote to restrict it, then it would just go into the general fund.
It looked like Chris had something to say.
Yeah, I'm getting there.
Okay.
Hang on a minute, Deb.
That's fine.
Chris,
So my understanding is that the infrastructure monies would stay as infrastructure monies for the industrial park. They don't roll into the general fund. Only any future sale would, results of any future sale as a result of that resolution for that particular year. Whatever is there would stay there restricted. And I would venture to explain to you that the 25% is absolutely needed to be in there to, I've already had a discussion with a potential buyer this week on a parcel. There needs to be a water line brought to it, and there needs to be some other utilities brought to it. So without the town having the money, nobody's gonna buy any land in that park if they have to bring their own sewer to it.
Okay, Deb, Janick, you were,
Well, what I was gonna ask is, I had kind of forgotten we had this pot of money. Are they using this to do the recycling center?
not the recycling center, but the road.
The
that
road into
goes
the
to it.
recycling center, right?
And if they have to run water to it and electricity to it, those things are allowed to be covered. The recycling center itself is not.
No, but I know there's a lot of work that has to be done just to get that recycling
Right.
center, the road and all that.
Correct.
Yeah, so this covers just what it says, infrastructure, waters, maybe sewage, who knows, electricity, a road, things like that. Oh, and, a design study for the road, engineering study for that kind of thing, but not for the project, it's, if you will, a building, for instance.
Correct.
Jay?
Joe Souza.
Well, first, I'm going to say I disagree that money would stay restricted, but we haven't had an opinion from the solicitor, but I don't think that money would stay restricted because it's an annual vote each year. Same with every other account we have for, that's restricted, like for elections and assessments. The bottom line is this, we're going to need money next year. So by freeing that money up, and as far as Bill Sales moving up into the industrial park, and then we'd have to run him a water line. Bill Sales could put in a cistern. He doesn't need a water line. He's just cutting wood up there. And the town doesn't need to bring a water line up that road for the recycle center either. I mean, the bottom line is we could do the majority of that work with material we already have in stock and just send Kim up there with the bulldozer for a week or two to build that entire road. I mean, it's pretty flat ground. There's not a lot of blasting and stuff. My only point is this, I'm not going to believe first that money is still restricted because we haven't had the opinion from the solicitor. And second, I'm not going to believe that, all of a sudden some contractor needs a water line, so we don't want to move that money. That money is the taxpayers' money, and it needs to be available so that we don't have like an 8 or 10% increase. And don't say I'm blowing the sky away, because we could have that high of an increase if we're not careful with this budget. That's all I got to say.
All right, maybe it's time to ask this question. Jen,
I was just going to say that certainly for access to cash in the future, after the new fiscal year, any money that is generated from a sale of property would be subjected to whatever resolve we pass with our new resolutions. But what happened with resolutions passed last year, that money was voted upon and shall remain there.
Correct.
It can't be moved. It was voted on, the populace voted on it and said, yes, we want this for that. And so we can't move last year's amount of money or until this fiscal year's money. We can't move it for 2021.
Correct.
that's my opinion also. The money that is in that pot that was voted to be put in that pot will remain there. The only thing we would do if we changed the resolution was affect what would happen from that point on. So it's like having a bank account that you're no longer putting money in. You still got that money. And it's still restricted. We just wouldn't be adding any more. But we don't want to do that either, I don't believe. So look, based on this new, when they say 65 days after state approves, that's when our that's when our FDR would be, right? Chris?
Correct.
So we're not going to have a lot of time to bandy about too much of this budget. If we get 2 weeks, we're probably going to be lucky.
So the requirement is 44 days from the time that you submit to the FDR. So this would give you just about 3 weeks.
At the most.
It's short, 1 day.
So that's what I was hoping, if we could knock out some of these things, at least reach a consensus,
So,
and then remember what the consensus was, or even if we could vote on them.
so my suggestion is, as you go through these, that you develop a list of questions that if you need the solicitor to answer them, as a group, I'll have him take a look at them and then get on one of your meetings and he can give you a reply.
Okay. Like I said, I already asked them the basic question. If we don't reintroduce a resolution, is it effectively killed? And is the money that had previously been restricted remain restricted?
I'll ask him, but my opinion, I know it's not worth the salt for some people, but it's no different than police pension monies or OPEB monies or other monies that we restrict. At the end of the day, if we decided not to fund OPEB this year, doesn't mean that all the other OPEB money goes into the general fund free.
Right, I agree. And the only reason I'm saying this is, last week or last Friday, I said I would do this, so I'm doing it.
Okay.
Just that way.
Right,
Sherry Aker.
Mr. Cotta, do you know what the current balance of the general fund is right now?
So we went over this the other day. It's about 3.3 million, I think it was. I
Something
think
like that.
the day the treasurer was on.
Yeah, I couldn't remember exactly
I
if you
think the
knew, if you guys
unrestricted is
remember what she
3.3
said.
million.
3.3. I just remembered her saying that we might be able to use some for this year, maybe $1 million for next year. I know it has to stay at like 3%
3% of the operating budget.
operating budget.
the-
Okay,
Yeah, the general budget.
okay, thank you.
But Sherry, like I said last meeting, we don't want to obligate that next year. We may exhaust it this year. There may be none left. We may be at the 3% when we actually hit 2021,
If we don't cut the budget, but if we end up needing.
just due to expenses.
Right, well, I'm just saying if it is there, if it's,
Well, we
If
will
it's-
know by June 3rd, by the time the state budget's done, whether or not. we're-
right, that's what I'm saying is that if we need then to look at using that some of that money to lower the levy or to, ease the burden on the taxpayers, then maybe we can do that too.
And keep in mind, in a declared emergency, the town council can take that below 3%, but it must be brought back the following year. So it's, pay me now, pay me later. Okay, so are we going to continue with resolutions, or? I think we discussed number one and we're not going to do much. Yeah, Brendan. You're muted.
Thank you. It seems to me that the nature of all of the ones that passed, so let's assume for now, we're going to get a legal opinion on whether the existing balance stays restricted or can roll over. But if it stays restricted, then I think in principle, they're all similar. Do we want to not have the restrictions, put money into restricted accounts, or and give discretion to the town council to put them where it needs to go? Or do we say, no, these things are really important, we need to keep them? So to me, that, and maybe people feel differently about one item versus another.
Well, that's a good point, Well, for instance, number one, town council resolution number one involves the industrial park. Number two, pay as you throw. We want to keep that. Number three, the reevaluation account. Number four, the elections fund. All these things we're going to have money in. Number six, is,
The capital. Mhm.
Number
oh,
five.
that's, number 6 is the one where anything left in the municipal side,
Don't forget number 5. Number
25%. Huh?
I don't know if you mentioned number 5. Sorry, go ahead.
I didn't, because number 5 has a corollary on the budget committee side,
Okay.
also number 5. And last year it failed.
Mhm.
The town council version failed. So anyway, number 6 is the one where unexpected municipal money goes, 25% goes into the restricted capital account. And some goes into what? Yeah.
I have a question then on that one. If we're not if not spending capital, Jay, is that a good reason to bring this down and bring this one down from the 25% going to capital? I'm just looking at it still, but if anyone has any insight into whether the capital changes that we're thinking of possibly making would affect this one. I'm just asking right now.
I personally think that we should probably not have this one for this year. The purpose of this was to try to build up a capital fund so that we weren't buying things on credit and having to pay all that interest, and to have the money so that if we had an emergency, it was just to put into it. But again, this is probably the same thing as the industrial park, where if we didn't have that any longer, we would still have that fund from previous years.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Deb, for explaining that. We use the reasoning. Thanks.
Jen Rashley, did you raise your hand a minute ago?
Yeah, I agree. I don't think we should have this one this year.
Okay. Is everybody still on board of having money in the elections account and the reevaluation account?
Yeah.
Didn't
And-
Mr. Cotta say something about maybe reworking the reevaluation account? I remember him saying something about that.
That may be a carry forward to next year. I'm still working logistically through whether or not the people can actually go out and visit homes. It's become an issue. So we may be pushing it off from this year to next.
The whole reevaluation, or?
No, not that. We're still gonna get complied. We're hoping to get back out visiting homes and doing the assessments probably in July or August to come up with a new value for December 31st. But I did ask Dave Robert to inquire of the state if this moves on further than what we think, is there a possibility of moving the reval as well?
So then maybe this year would just become a statistical one.
Well, no, it'd still be, well, I don't know. We'd have to wait and hear guidance from the state as to whether or not they will let us push it.
All right,
But-
so it's still, yeah, when I talked to Dave Robert, he said there might be difficulties with them actually going in and looking in houses, but as far as he knew, they were still gonna,
Right now from doing that.
okay. All right, so then that's something, maybe we'll have more information in a month. Okay. Okay, so Town Council Resolution 6, we're pretty much, are we all pretty much in agreement that maybe this one should go?
Yeah.
That's fine.
We're not going to vote on it, just keep it in the back of your heads when.
Correct.
Okay, now we're on the Budget Committee resolutions.
Can you read it, please, Jay?
I'm sorry?
Can you read it, please?
I can read it. Resolved that the expense and revenue budgets, both itemized by account, that support the proposal for appropriations and tax levies, which receives a majority of votes cast by the electors at this financial town referendum shall be adopted as the Tiverton General Fund budget for this fiscal year ending June 30th. It'll be 2021. So that's pretty much just saying if the voters want it, they get it. Number 2, resolve that all municipal capital accounts be restricted for their intended purpose and that no transfers are authorized out of those accounts.
I think we need to take that out.
And that's capital again.
Right.
Well, yeah, I was going to mention that the only thing with that is, okay, here's the thought.
Hmm.
If money is budgeted for a restricted capital account, and like I said last meeting, just because it's budgeted doesn't mean it has to be spent. However, it's locked up. Now, I talked to the town council president about this, and I said, if we got rid of this, it would give you more opportunity, give you more flexibility. But then she brought up something that I hadn't thought of. It's loose money. So if any entity in town wants to get at it for a purpose that we really didn't intend to happen, they could. Yes, Jennifer.
Well, also, when we went through at our last meeting, the capital items that we would like to fund, we noted where we thought that money should best go. So that makes those appropriations moot if we were to pass, if we weren't to keep that resolve. If we want to keep in line what we just discussed last time, then we would also want to keep the resolve that you just said. That you just
Chris?
read, to keep it restricted.
No. So, I mean, to be blunt, okay. Let's just say for argument that we freed up $600,000 of capital spending and it was available to be used for other purposes, not restricted. And let's just say that the school department takes us to court and wants more than we're giving them. It's available, it's on table.
First of all, I don't, go ahead. Are you finished, Jay? Go ahead.
So, even though our intent, everything has unintended consequences. So even though our intent would be to make it possible for the town council to use it for other things that are necessary, wouldn't necessarily happen the way we thought it would. Ruth.
Well, first, I don't think that the school is going to sue us in a crisis year. I mean, they might, but I'm just saying my feeling is that they wouldn't win in a crisis year either. But in any case, that's not scaring me. The fact is that just also that the town council and other approved movements and transfers all over the place anyway. I'm just saying that so when you say you can move this money, that's done anyway. This money, are you saying that what's there now in municipal capital, do we have an amount there, right, Jay, now in that restricted account, right?
In
all the municipal capital accounts, they're all have some money. So we're not going to touch that. We're just saying that next year, that what we're putting in, which we said we're not putting any capital in. Is that what you're saying, Jen?
No, what I'm saying is
we're not putting any capital in.
No, we're looking to appropriate a certain amount of capital items, and we designated money for plow truck and plows and 15 for Lucas chest
Right.
monitor and so forth.
Yeah.
So we talked about specific items that should be put into the capital count this year or for next year, 2021.
And I thought that we had discussed, I thought what you were talking about is we discussed not making those those expenditures as much this year. We didn't discuss that.
No. That was a different resolution that said if there was excess funds left over from
Brendan,
this.
Not talking about a resolution. I'm talking about us in our new budget. If we do another vote on some budgeting, we may not want to spend as much in the capital accounts. That's all I was asking is, didn't we say we were going to try to not spend? And so the municipal capital accounts won't have as much potentially.
So
Hang on there,
that's my
Yeah.
point.
Deb Janick has had a raise hand.
Yep.
raised for a
Go
while.
ahead, Deb, you can clarify.
Go ahead, Deb.
What I was going to say was, if we say, for example, had put in for an ambulance and a snowplow,
Mhm.
or we didn't put in for the ambulance, we put in for the snowplow, but an ambulance totally dies and we need to get an ambulance, but the money's there for a snowplow. This is saying that we cannot transfer that and buy the ambulance because we put the money in for the snowplow. I just want to make sure that they have enough flexibility that if that ambulance, just dies, and we have been in that situation, that they have the money to be able to purchase that and maybe have to prioritize what we've already voted for.
And it also means that once it's in a restricted capital account, even though the town council can transfer other monies around, they cannot do it with a restricted account. So they couldn't use it to say, rebuild the fire station that just burned down or any of this kind of stuff.
So you're saying.
But as soon as we give them the authority, or as soon as they're able to do that, if they're able to use restricted capital for other purposes, then it could also be used for other unintended purposes.
Right. Again, it's this year. We're only talking about this next.
We're not talking about 2020, Ruth,
No,
2021.
I said this cycle, yes, that we're going to, of course. And that means that we could put it back in, or the budget committee could put it back in the following year. You know what I mean? So I'm just I'm making sure people don't think it's going to be, forever and ever. Yeah, go ahead.
Joe Souza.
I was just going to say, maybe it's in the wording, because you can restrict the account to capital, but perhaps put in that in an emergency, they can spend, outside of the line item. It's my only point. You can restrict it to capital, so it's not available to another, side of the town, but still give a little leeway inside of that capital budget. We are writing the resolve, so it's just a matter of putting the right words there to give them the ability to work, but it has to be a transfer within a capital for capital is my only point. It can't be transferred to salaries or whatever.
Mhm.
That's a good idea.
Chris, you got a lot of experience doing this. Can you move capital within restricted capital, the broad heading, or does it have to, if it's been for a tractor, you have to buy it has to be applied to the tractor or the fire engine or whatever? You're muted, Chris.
So my understanding is it depends on how it's written. If it's written such that each capital item is restricted for its intended purpose, then you would not be able to transfer from a tractor to a snow truck to a police car because it's for their intended purpose.
And that's the way this reads, that all municipal capital accounts be restricted for their intended purpose.
So when I did it, the only thing that we did was we ensured that you could add money to them. Because sometimes you'd go out to bid and you might be $700 short, $1,500 short. So you'd want to be able to have the ability to transfer money in so you could actually buy that piece of equipment. But you couldn't transfer it in from another capital account.
Yeah, you couldn't take it out. You couldn't use it for something else.
Right.
All right.
So we got that.
So. Yeah, how does people feel about that? Is something that we want to do away with, or because like I said, if we do, it could have unintended consequences.
Well, I like using the word emergency.
Yes, Deb Janick.
Well, I actually, kind of agree with Joe. I think that this was put there, the reason we put this wording in was so that if we had put on the budget for a tractor, but then the council decided to buy a snowplow, and then the next year we were getting the tractor request again, and we put the money in and it wasn't being purchased. It was just to make sure that what we were being told was needed, that that's where the money was going. So I think if we want to keep it restricted to the capital account so that we have money there for those emergencies, but change the wording so that it's just restricted to the capital account and there's, it's not saying for the intended purpose.
So something to the effect that it could only be used for other line items within the
The capital items,
municipal capital.
municipal capital equipment or accounts. Yeah.
Okay,
It sounds good to me. I mean, it's
Yeah, I
just,
like that too. I like rewording it.
so it's still captured, it's just not loose. Okay, let's see, Budget Committee Resolution number 4 was, that had a town council resolution that was similar that passed. Number 4 had a town council resolution, number 4, that was similar. Oh, here we go. Number 5, resolved that the account new paving, drainage, curbing, and sidewalks shall be a restricted account to be used solely for the purpose of paving, drainage, curbing, and sidewalks. How are we with that one?
I don't have any of those in South Tiverton.
You don't have sidewalks.
Well, not on my street.
Well, we want you
Yeah,
off, we want you
it's not
South
about-
Tiverton people off the street.
Right.
This one's an interesting one because I think, at least in our own minds, the paving account had been considered a capital account. But for all of our budgeting purposes, it's come as a line item under the operations budget for DPW. So last year, I think it was making sure that Rick Rogers had said, in addition to just paving, that we also include the drainage language that was in there that give him, so that he could, when he repairs a piece of road, that it would also allow him to do sidewalking, curbing, and drainage. So anyway, this is one that normally would have been in the bucket, at least in my mind, had always been sort of in a capital side of things, but for whatever reason, it's shown up in the docket under DPW operations. And so this is why, making sure if we choose to keep it restricted for that, we need to say so, because otherwise, when it's in the operations side of things, this is the point that we were just trying to make on the last one, is the town council could move money around if we don't restrict this.
Yeah,
Right.
so in Public Works, 5540, under, let's see, account number 6794, that's paving drainage account, and it's restricted.
Right. A
And we
question-
added, I think it was last year, we added sidewalks, and because sidewalks became an issue, who owns them? Who fixes them? What do we do about it if you mess up the road? That kind of thing. Ruth?
Oh, just, this also requires Rick to designate people doing this work too, right? So it's not only a purely capital purchase, I think. I don't know if that's why he wanted it that way, but that's what I'm just saying.
I don't get what you're saying, Ruth.
No.
When you're doing paving and you're curbing and you're buying materials for all of this, you also have to plan in the work hours, is all I'm saying. I'm just making a note on that it's,
Well, that's all part of, Rick goes to the town council and he says, I want to put it out for bid.
right.
And the town council says, yes, you can do that. And then we we take the lowest bid to do all the work, which includes everything needed to do that job.
Right, it's different than just buying an ambulance though, because when an ambulance, you purchase an ambulance, there's no labor involved necessarily. You just purchase their boat motors or something.
That
It's a
Janick,
different thing. Yeah,
The reason this says new is because when Rick started last year, he said that when we do, remember we had combined 2 years ago, paving and drainage, because when you pave, you have to do drainage.
right,
And he also was finding that when you're doing paving and drainage, you're also doing curbing and sidewalks. So they kind of combined and made this new account. So it included everything. And because he was finding that the prior year, he ran out of, we had barely any money in sidewalks and curbing, and he ran out of money there. And he had to keep going to the council to have them reallocate money from the paving and drainage to curbing and sidewalks so he could complete the entire project. So we just combined it all so that if he had to do a lot of curbing, then he had the money. If he only did a little curbing, then, more went toward the paving side. So it just allowed him the flexibility to do what was needed in the paving, draining, curbing, and sidewalk, which is all kind of one project.
that's the way I remember it. Brendan, is that the way you remember it?
Correct, yes. Mhm.
All right,
It made sense too.
yeah, it does. Okay, number 6 of ours was resolve that any unencumbered funds as of June 30th, there ain't gonna be any this year, will be returned to the general fund with the exception of Public Works Department unencumbered funds that will be placed in the restricted paving, drainage, curbing, sidewalks account new. Everybody remembers that one.
It's kind of moot. We won't have money really, so.
I doubt it. Chris, you doubt it?
What I do, it's going to general fund.
Yes, Jen.
Well, with both of these, I'm wondering if we need, do we have to restate, do we have to re-vote that these things are combined in the same account? Does that have to be voted on every year?
What are you talking about? Each resolution?
Well, do we have to
No.
say, again this year, that paving, drainage, curbing, and sidewalks are combined and can be used together? Do we have to repeat that, or did that just go into effect last year, and so now that's the way it is?
That was
No,
the town
every-
administrator did that. The town
So-
administrator did, they just changed the account. We didn't have to, people didn't vote on that. There was just changing the line item number, combining the different line
Hang on a
items.
minute.
So then are either of these resolves necessary?
Well,
Okay.
yeah, because that keeps it into the account for the next year instead of it letting it just go into the general fund.
It came up a couple of years ago, remember, that a lot of these resolutions, they just kept moving forward and kept moving forward and kept moving forward. They weren't introduced. They weren't discussed. They just appeared and moved. And I believe it was Justin Katz that brought up the issue of, no, these have to be reintroduced and become, voted on each and every budget cycle. Is that what you're asking?
Yes.
So, yeah,
They're pretty
Chris.
much the same, they're pretty much the same as what I did years ago.
they are.
They're almost identical.
Right.
Right. But
But that's why I said a lot of these things, I hate the word to use the word rubber stamped, but they made sense to keep on.
Okay, so it does have to stay in.
Yeah.
We need to keep
Yeah.
it. Okay, thank
I
you.
would say it gives you a taxpayer some level of confidence that their largest capital purchases and their paving and drainage accounts are actually being used for their intended purpose. And that was the result of it, so that there wouldn't be a lot of transferring out of those accounts to subsidize other items that were never really brought before the taxpayers in the past.
Okay,
And here's a point, and I think Ruth brought it up last year or this year, I forget when. Most taxpayers, when they go to the FDR and they look at this budget docket, they assume that they look at a line item and, you know, any particular line item could be near and dear to their heart. And they assume and expect that they're voting on the entire budget, which includes line item 2010 widgets. And we're going to spend $10,000 on widgets. And they expect that to happen. However, the town council has the ability and the need to move money around within the budget to meet any and all needs. So widgets may go by the wayside. However, when you're talking about $500,000 for a paving account, I myself would be horrified if I found out, nope, even though I voted for $500,000 to pave the streets, they decided to buy widgets.
Okay.
So, yes.
Okay, thanks.
Just Jerry, one other thing.
Hang on,
if I
Sherry.
may, is that, yeah, large accounts, it's a great point, but and another thing is, if it's not used that year, some of these things, you do more of the work one year than you do another year. And I know Rick made the point, I think, that if you don't use it one year, you're going to definitely need it the next year. So you know what I mean? And we have an issue in the town. We don't really have a lot of restricted ways of restricting the accounts. It's you almost, they're supposed to be used, all that money was supposed to be used up that year. That was mainly the way it works. And you can correct me, Chris, if I'm wrong. I think they have to use up that year. It doesn't carry over. That's, I think, the way it worked. So for this large account, I think he wanted to be able, if he didn't use some this year, he can use it next year and be able to gauge what he needs, and partly that. Also.
Sherry, did you have something?
My question is just, I kind of wanted to see what Joe Souza had to say about this, because I know we were talking about, I get that in any normal year, I thought there was a lot of, quite a bit of paving had not been able to be accomplished. And my concern is that obviously we, you know, I want to see money kept in there to be carried, you know, for us to have money in the paving account. But if we don't, if we're looking at all of these and we're not going to have any of this, you know, any money rolled into the general fund to try to help if we come up with a shortfall, is that going to be a problem? I just, you know, I wondered what Joe thought about the paving account, since he knows a lot about what's going on with that.
Jay?
Whom? Joe?
Oh.
Just that, I think what I'm hearing now is that we spent it.
We did.
There's not a lot of money left. I find it hard to believe, but because years past, I mean, we spent maybe $200,000-300,000 on paving. I don't know how we went through so much money so fast. And I haven't seen the treasurer either. But
Well,
I just think we're going to be looking for money. And if we restrict everything, then we need money for, I don't know, you know, I mean, you talked earlier about the schools and maybe coming after the town. I mean, if some of the things that were talked about with social distancing in next year's school year, and if it still goes on, you know, there's a lot of ifs and we don't know what. So to keep restricting all these dollars, to me, I think we're going to shoot ourselves in the foot. Maybe just for this year, let the money go into the general fund, whatever's left, because we didn't do a lot of plowing. I'm sure there's going to be plow and sanding money left. Couldn't have spent all that, please. Tell me they didn't.
Couldn't the town council, if that money rolled into the general fund, still allocate it to the things that need to be allocated? I mean, obviously, hopefully, Mr. Cotta will be, you know, watching over that. And if something's needed somewhere, I mean, but I agree. So at least for this year, I think some of this, we just need to be careful that we don't, you know, not give them enough leeway to do what needs to be done.
Chris?
So to answer Joe's question about, do we spend the money? We've spent the lion's share of it. There are still some residual things that need to be done. when we used to spend $250,000 a year, they used to overlay the road and just put the base coat down. This year, we did 9 roads, both base coat and finished paving. And they have yet to finish the edges of the road with loom and the striping and the things that go along with doing the roads. So they did spend I believe, almost $500,000 in paving, and they probably still have another $100,000 worth of residuals to go as it relates to those 9 roads.
I have a,
Ruth?
Joe, I thought made the point last year that if we don't do the paving when we need to, that it becomes a worse problem and more expensive later. I thought that was part of this importance of this. But I understand this is an emergency year, so I don't know if you want to put 50%, maybe we could put a percentage in. I don't know, people can talk about it, but Chris, maybe you don't think it should be changed, Chris, the way that it is fine.
I think when people vote to put money into having roads done, that they, for many years, and Joe would agree probably, that for many years, we didn't do a lot of paving. We didn't do a lot of drainage. There were years we took money out of the paving account to balance so that we could get a levy that was appropriate. It's, I was actually surprised to see that there was that much money in the account this year, but at the same token, when I checked on the balance to see where we were, and I did go out and take a look at all the roads that were being done, when you add the base coat and the finish coat to it, it's very expensive.
And Chris, there was also drainage. A lot of drainage was done. There were drainage problems from that were causing ice forming and lots of things like that too. So yeah, I agree.
John Rashley?
I was just going to ask about process and the cost of the materials for paving. Will they go down this year because oil has plummeted?
Well, that's a good question. We will have to go out to bid, or we will roll the bid depending on where we think it is. But that's one of the items on my particular list to look at, that we're going to have to get a contract under our belt for next year. So I'll be looking at all that. I don't know right now. All I can tell you is what we spent close to $500,000 based on what they had bid last year.
And then, I guess the other question is, or it seems like every time we talk about paving, everyone is always saying we're decades away from being able to repave everything that needs to be repaved. So it makes sense to restrict the same amount regardless of whether it costs less to do more.
And I think a lot of people will agree. There's many things that will attract people's attention, voters' attention, people that live in town. But one of them, certainly, that'll really get their attention is paving that is in desperate need of being done. Especially if you've dropped your car has disappeared into a pothole, or the street on the street in front of your house has needed to be paved for the past 10 years, and here we go again. They're not doing it again this year.
20.
Just saying.
Mine hasn't been paved in 42 years
Wow.
that I've been here.
Wow.
Well,
Holy moly.
they just did all the streets in my neighborhood, Tom, so you should move over here.
Well, I mean, there's even a deeper problem that they don't do the subsurfaces that they need to do because they don't have the money for that. I don't know if Chris, you know about that. They don't go underneath. I mean, even in ancient times, they did better job of putting the I don't know what they're called really, but the subsurfaces underneath. And then when they do pave, they kind of buckle and rumple sometimes, which, it's just not, it's not the perfect process at this point.
There's nothing more aggravating to see a road paved only to have potholes in it 2 years later. So
Yeah, it's just,
I can tell you the roads that they did up in my neighborhood, they took it down to dirt.
okay.
And they let it set for, I don't know, a week, 2, and then went over it again. And then they did the sub base, and then that sat for a week or 2 before they did the finish. And they're still not finished. But, they didn't just grind off the top layer this time and throw a new coat on.
Good.
They took it all the way down.
And I think what's happened prior to us having these resolves about putting money into those accounts, is we'd have a bad winter and they would need more money for the plowing and the sanding, and they would take that money from paving. That was kind of the go-to fund to pull money from. So they didn't always have a lot of money, and you had these streets that were really a mess, and they had to do something for safety, but they didn't have the money to do it and right down to the bottom. So as we started putting this in, that's why you're
Right.
seeing that the line item, it has more money in it, you know, that pot has more money in it. So they had put together a list of prioritizing these streets, but I know I've been up in your neighborhood, Jay, and they're looking good. And there's still a lot of other areas that have problems. We had problems in off Main Road last year or the year before, and it just totally collapsed, and they had to do the drainage, and it was a very, very costly repair, and it probably took a lot of money away from some of the other streets that we thought. But I get it, and I see it. People are commenting on social media, we pay all these taxes, why isn't our street done? And there might be a street that's worse off than them, and we hadn't really funded it well until like some years ago. So
Well, as you've all heard Rick Rogers say famously, if you just take the mileage of roads in Tiverton and divide it by, how much you could reasonably expect to do in a year, we're close to a century to do the whole town. So, limited resources. And the thing that, this year, they don't pave in the winter, it usually starts in the spring like it did this year. And hopefully they've spent their wad by June 30th, and they have this year pretty much. And that's usually the way it goes. They don't do much in the fall. They certainly don't do it in the winter, but in the spring they go great guns.
So it sounds like we should keep both of those resolves as is.
I would say so, and I know you all heard at some of our meetings, some of the town councilors' opinion was, don't cut paving.
Yeah.
Okay. And our number 8 for the budget committee was resolved that if the electors at this financial town referendum appropriate an amount for the school department capital account new, then said amount shall be placed in a restricted account under the jurisdiction of the town treasurer to be used solely to fulfill the school capital requests. That was one we introduced, I believe, last year. I talked to Denise Surratt about it. That's the way it happens. She doesn't approve the expenditure. She just documents it. So they say they need to do X. They send her the bill. She verifies that it was used for something that was supposed to be used, not something invented, and the bill gets paid. Any questions about that?
Well, I have a question.
Ruth.
No one else does. You were going to go to the schools and ask if they were able to come down in their budget at all. I thought you said something, you were going to contact them and
I
get
did.
information. Do you want to give us that result yet, or can you give us any information on it, Jay?
I will just say that they have not changed their request.
Okay. And are we saying that they're not going to be, I thought in the school meeting, they said they were cutting the capital.
No,
no.
they told us at
Okay.
a couple of their meetings, Peter Sanchioni told us at our visit to the schools and when he was in front of us a couple of times, he would, I won't say gladly, but he would be willing to give up any and all capital requests as long as we didn't cut him any more on his operating budget.
Right.
Everybody remember that?
Yep.
He said that. So we have not eliminated his capital budget because there are some things in that school that just can't not be fixed.
But Ruth, we did decrease the operating budget significantly compared to what they requested.
And we've cut,
Okay,
and we've reduced,
Yeah.
and we've reduced the capital request again.
Correct.
It's down to what, 50,000 now?
Correct. Mhm.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
The thing about,
1 year, just for
well, no, I won't say. Any other remarks about this particular resolution? I think we all remember why we wanted it. Okay, so that's pretty much all the resolutions. Oh, and then if you recall, at the bottom of the, I finally found it, the tax levy worksheet for fiscal year 20. We recategorized the paving and drainage and from public works operating expenses to municipal capital. It used to be all in operating, then we moved it. That's, if you remember, that's why municipal capital took that huge increase. It was kind of an artificial increase. We just took the money from one pot and put it in another and then said, okay, now it's a restricted account. Okay, so what are our, I really didn't think we were going to vote on resolutions tonight, so it doesn't matter if we don't. I think we sort of hashed over a lot of these. Like I said, I had an email into the town solicitor asking them a couple of questions about the ramifications of how we present or don't present a resolution and what happens, you know, does it have a tail? If we don't reintroduce it, does it die? That kind of thing. Personally, I think it does, but Jen Joslin.
Jay, is there a reason why we can't vote on the resolutions? If we've already discussed them, they're fresh in our head, and then we would have that section complete. And then when we have to get back together, we're really only talking about what we're going to change, what numbers have changed in the budget.
There's no reason we can't if we reach a consensus that we want to do that.
I just think it's actually like, we've just had 3 meetings that all we've done is kind of, you know, reiterate things that we don't have numbers in front of. We could actually complete something.
What do you think, guys? You want to vote on these?
I'm good with that.
You don't mind if I leave at this point, do you? I have another meeting to go to?
Oh,
Chris,
Chris,
thank
you
you.
poor thing. Who else is meeting?
No, it's a private meeting for my finances. My
Oh.
finance.
Okay. Thank you for coming.
Good night.
Okay.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you, Chris.
Thanks. Good
you.
night.
If I
Good night.
figure out how to get out of here now.
We're not going to be doing this tomorrow night. I got to cancel the meeting, so.
Yeah, hit down to the bottom right, Chris, there's leave, L-E-A-V button.
I don't see
There we
him,
go.
so I think he found it.
Yeah.
Okay, he's gone. Now we can talk about somebody else. Okay, so if we want to do that, but you know, right off the bat on town council resolutions, we had a problem with number 1. So do you want to vote on all of these or just the ones that we don't have any heartache with?
How about just the budget committee resolutions?
Well, we could do that too.
Yeah, let the town council do theirs like they've had in the past. Let's just vote on ours.
Well, that's what I was thinking is, do we have to vote on theirs or can we just vote on ours?
No, they can submit
do
their
theirs.
own.
Yeah, their own.
No, but if they don't, there's some things in here that are good to have. So the thing is too, if we submit a resolution and it's basically the same as a town council resolution, ours is the one that carries.
Jay, the only
If
thing I'm
they're
thinking,
approved.
the only thing I'm thinking is like from last year, we were trying to decide on resolutions and they hadn't met yet. So that's why some of them were duplicate was because
Right.
they met after us. If we're able tonight to come to a conclusion and vote on these, they're going to have them in advance notice and know that what we've already voted on and is finalized on our side. So maybe we won't end up with that situation where they're duplicated. And the other thing is we're going to meet again. So if they are missing one, we can still add it when we meet back up.
Yeah, we could do that if they still haven't done anything with them. We could just say, okay, town council resolution number 1, we want it, and we'll introduce it as ours. But you know, that's a good point. We can knock out the budget
it's kind
committee
of working.
resolutions that were approved in the fiscal year 20 FTR.
it's kind of working in reverse, this year, because we're
Yeah.
going to be ahead of the game, and then they'll have ours. And the same thing with, when we meet back up, we might have a better idea of actual numbers. So, I just think it'll be, and we can actually send them to them and see if they, whatever they add, that they don't add, we can add.
Okay. So, Budget Committee Resolution number 1.
Jen, do you have something?
No,
I'm
I was
sorry.
just I was just gonna say, I move that we accept resolve number 1 with the exception that we change the date to 2021 as written.
A second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to accept Budget Committee Resolution number 1. We'll just change the fiscal year ending date to June 30th, 2021. Any discussion on that? Okay, I'm not going to do a roll call vote. I'll do a show of hands. All those in favor? Okay. Joe, are you against?
I'm opposed.
I'm going to be
Okay,
opposed.
Joe,
also.
Joe Souza is opposed, Ruth Hallenbach, Jay Edwards, Tom Hamilton, Brendan McNally, Jennifer Rashley, Jennifer Jocelyn, Tom.
No, my
Tom
hand was
Haley.
up, but it wasn't in the camera.
Sherry Aker? Yes or
We,
no?
we are talking about the budget committee resolution that just basically says that the voters have the right to adopt our resolutions.
Yes.
Number 1 on the budget committee. Yes,
Yes.
then yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so Sherry Aker and Deb Janick were for, Joe Souza was against. And Mike Dakotas is absent. Okay,
So opposed was Joe and Ruth, is that right?
No, I'm for.
Okay,
Ruth,
thank you.
Ruth was in favor. Resolution number 2, resolved that all, do I need to read it? Resolved that all municipal capital accounts be restricted for their intended purpose and no transfers are authorized out of these accounts. Jennifer Rashley.
Weren't we going to amend this by saying that transfers can be made, all funds must remain within municipal capital, but upon emergency may be transferred from one department to another?
I have a question.
Yes,
Can't they override it even if it's voted on, we are in a state of emergency?
I don't believe so. But that's one of the legal opinion type things.
Can I read it so that Jen will be happy? Resolved that all municipal capital accounts be restricted and that no transfers are authorized out of those accounts except in a state of emergency. Is that okay, Jen? Jen,
How about a declared state of emergency?
declared, fine, that's fine.
Declared by who, though? The town council or by the state?
That's a definition of what's going on. You don't have to say by who.
I
It's
guess it doesn't matter if there's an emergency.
No, right, because we,
has to be done by
we had that issue when the ambulance went down and we were borrowing ambulances from other towns. And they were trying to determine if they should call it a state of emergency or not. And the council could have voted for that. They chose not to, but they could have.
Regardless of whether it was emergency or not?
They had to determine if not having an ambulance was an emergency.
Oh, I see.
So they just, because then they could have gotten emergency funding and just done it right away. They opted not to because they were borrowing ones. So it gave them time to purchase one, but they did have that right to do that. It didn't have to be, that could have been a town emergency. It doesn't have to be a statewide emergency, like, a pandemic or something like that.
right. I mean,
So
there's
are you,
criteria, there's-
so to be clear, is it your opinion then that the town council can take money out of a restricted account and repurpose it somewhere else?
well, but
I don't know if it's a restricted account, Jay, because I think that they would have taken it from the general fund.
Oh, I thought, is this the one we were talking about, going from, say, a snowplow to an ambulance?
Yeah,
Yes.
Well, it's the same, just say from one item to another then. That way it's,
Well, so municipal capital restricted 0980 has a lot of chapters. And each chapter is a account number. So I guess what we want to make sure they can do is take money out of one account number and use it in another. But they still wouldn't be able to take it out of the restricted account and use it for an unrestricted purpose. Is that pretty much what we'd
Yeah.
want to stay with, right?
We want municipal capital, all of it to remain in municipal capital.
Restricted to municipal capital.
And for its intended purpose.
No, you take that out,
With
Jen.
with the exception of a state of emergency. Sorry, I need to write this without. I
We need
can't
the
talk.
legalese on how to do this.
Can I give it a try? Resolve
Yeah.
that all municipal capital accounts be restricted and no transfers authorized out of those accounts except to other municipal capital accounts in a state of emergency, a declared state of emergency,
Okay, fine, that's good.
something like that.
That sounds
Mhm.
doable.
That does it. Thank you, Ruth.
So did everybody hear that?
yeah.
I'm most concerned to make sure Donna got it.
Donna gets it.
Donna, did you get all that?
You want me to read it again, Donna? She's probably going to use the tape of this, I think, the video.
Donna Armstrong, you still with us?
I'm here. I just couldn't unmute. I'm all set. I got it.
Did you hear what Ruth said?
Yes, all set.
Okay,
Thank you.
Way ahead of us.
so, okay, so do we want to make a motion on that?
Ruth, do you want to make the motion since you've got the writing?
I'll move to resolve, make a motion to accept resolution number, Budget Committee, the resolution number 2. And do I need to read the whole thing?
Yes.
Yeah, why not?
Resolved that all municipal capital accounts be restricted and that no transfers are authorized out of those accounts except to other municipal capital accounts in a declared state of emergency.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Brendan McNally seconds. Okay. Don, is it easier for you if we do a voice vote or a raise the hands vote?
You can raise your hands. That's fine.
Okay, so all those in favor? Attaboy, Joe. That's unanimous with Mike Dakotas absent. Okay, so I'm going to read number 3 because remember I said it failed last year because of a town council resolution, but we'll do it. Resolve that if the electors at this financial town referendum appropriate a sum for municipal operations and capital expenses that includes an amount to fund the reevaluation account, said amount shall be placed in the restricted reevaluation reserve account to be used solely for the purpose of funding property revaluations. It's pretty cut and dried. We do it all the time. So everybody understands it. Do we have a motion?
I move that we accept resolve number 3 as read.
Second,
I'll second it.
Deb Janick seconds.
Quick
Any further,
discussion,
any discussion?
just real quick.
Sure.
Just that there's so many resolves on this docket. Do you really think that any town council would move the money out of this account? I mean, I just feel like if there was
No,
ever
Jeff.
resolves that we could remove, because there's a lot of them, this is one. I mean, I'm gonna vote against it. Just,
Okay,
I'm a no.
just for that reason, right?
Well, I don't think we need it. And I think we need to reduce the papers, the paperwork that we're putting out to the public. There's too many resolves.
But you don't oppose it.
Well, I don't want to see it spent, but I don't think that the town council is gonna spend out of that account. I just don't. I mean, it's, you know, we know what it's for, so.
I don't know why this was created, what the circumstances were. Okay. Any further discussion?
It might be because it was important. I don't know.
Okay.
To track it, you know.
Didn't say
Tom,
it
were
wasn't
you-
important. I said no town council would ever take money out of this account.
I know, but I don't go
Transfer
by,
it to whatever
go-
operations.
I know, Joe.
Tom Hamilton, were you raising your hand or were
Yes,
you?
I was. No, I was getting ready to vote yes.
Oh, okay. So I haven't voted yet.
I know.
All right. So we've had a motion, a second. We've discussed it. So we'll take a vote. All those in favor of this resolution? Joe Souza is opposed. The rest of us vote yes.
One absent.
Sure. Tom?
No, you just said you didn't put that there was one absent.
Oh, I think she knows that.
Okay.
Number 4, this one failed with us, passed as a council resolution, but I'll read it. Resolved that if the electors at this financial town referendum appropriate a sum for municipal operations and capital expenses that includes an amount to fund the election account, said amount shall be placed in the restricted elections reserve account to be used solely for the purpose of funding future elections and financial town referendum runoffs if necessary. Again, one of those has been around for a while.
Same objection.
Attaboy, Joe. Okay, motion?
So
I'll make a mo-
moved as read.
Jennifer Ashley
Second.
makes the
I'll
motion.
second it. I'll second it, Jay.
Who was that? Sherry?
Ruth.
Oh, Ruth. Ruth Hollenbach, seconds. Any further discussion?
We could probably save $1,000 in ink by dropping these 2 resolves.
Joe,
All right,
you
I'll
forgot,
stick with Joe on that. Drop that resolve.
you forgot the paper.
Yeah, well, you know.
Okay, so we've had our discussion. We'll take a vote. All those in favor of this resolution? Everybody's in favor. Joe is opposed.
I'm opposed.
I think
Sherry was opposed to. I'm gonna stick with Joe.
Oh,
This,
I'm sorry. You're opposed, Sherry?
yeah, I think it could. I think some of these could be dropped too, because I doubt anybody'd take money from Nancy Miller for her elections account.
She's
Maybe
retiring.
not Nancy, but what about the next clerk?
There you go.
So what?
Okay,
Town council.
resolution number 5, resolve that account new paving and drainage, curbing and sidewalks shall be a restricted account to be used solely for the purpose of paving, drainage, curbing, and sidewalks.
Do we need this one? It was already created. The account was created. That's why we needed it last year.
That's what we
It's
were
restricted.
discussing. We were discussing this before and it was said that, yes, we need to repeat this every time.
But it's also, it's because it's a restricted account, meaning that money cannot be removed from this account to pay for something else.
Correct. Mhm.
Well,
Right. I mean, this is where it's a little, if we approve this one, we're saying this money can only be used for paving. And when we looked at all the other capital accounts, we said they have to be used for their intended purposes unless there's an emergency.
So, yeah, I understand that. I guess my hang up is, do we need the word new? Because last year we had to create it to say new paving, drainage, and sidewalks, but it's no longer a new account. It's an account.
I don't
So
see.
do we take the word new out?
all right, so we need to probably, hang on, let me find it.
My version doesn't have new in it, the newer version.
Mine
Doesn't
doesn't
have-
either.
Mine still has new.
If you look at, okay,
Because it was last year. it
if
was
you
like
look
it
at the
was two
Budget
things in
Committee
one.
version, April 2nd, 2020 of the budget, page 11. Public Works, 5540, you drop down to account number 6794. It just says paving drainage account restricted, nothing about new. So should we just insert the account number?
Yes, I think so. That's,
Yeah.
Mine has the account number in it, so I don't know what version.
So it would
Oh,
be,
that's
so it
why
would
we
be
can
account
say-
number 5540-67.
94, yeah.
What I think
6794.
is that the town council resolution has the account number and doesn't say new. So if you look at the town, even though it
Right.
failed,
Oh,
it
yeah, you're
passed
right.
as budget committee resolution number 5
Okay.
and number 6. So we could just take the one from the town council because
Right.
it actually states it, I think, correctly.
That's number, we're on number,
Town council
hang on,
5.
We're,
5.
yeah, we're on number 5 on
Yeah.
ours, but number
Yeah, we could
5
do
on
that.
theirs.
So get rid of R5 and 6 and replace it with,
Or
Pair
just
5.
insert the number, you know, however you guys want to do it. Just so it's properly identified, that's all.
yeah. Just
I don't know
inserting
why
a
one
number.
I don't know why one passed and one failed when they essentially say the exact same thing.
Yeah.
So we
Well,
just have to change the dates.
Yes, we'd have to change the dates. So the dates, no. No, we're on 5. It doesn't have a date.
The
Correct.
So
town
we should-
council one
Town
does.
council has
We
the
should-
date.
Yeah,
We should
the one I'm
keep
looking at has a
ours.
date.
We should keep our hours and just put in the account numbers.
In place of new.
Yeah.
So it'll be
5540.
55, it'll be 5540-6794.
And that's already in the town council one.
Yeah, but take,
Right.
but
But
the town council one also puts in a date. We don't need the date. It's apparent that this is for 2021.
and also too, the town council one doesn't include the word curbing and sidewalks.
Right. So let's
Does or
keep
doesn't?
ours, but just put in the
Account
the
number.
Okay, I'm not seeing that.
Oh, yeah, okay. So we wouldn't want to adopt theirs because we want to include sidewalks and drainage and all that kind of stuff.
I'm very confused on the versions here because I'm looking at what's the budget committee one apparently then, if you're saying it's not the town council. And it says that it has the number, it has not, does not say new, it has curbing and sidewalks, and it has fiscal year 2021. It's all up to date. Oh,
Yeah,
I
I'm
see.
looking at the one Jay sent out.
That's what
Right.
confused,
Twelve
that's what
items on it.
confused, that's
So,
what confused me, Ruth. They basically said the same thing with some minor differences.
okay, as long as you're sure which one you want, that's great.
Because last year we had that conversation where we needed that to include those two words, and that's why it was a new account, and that's why it made it to ours, but theirs stayed at the other.
Yeah, but so if we just change new to the account number,
Yeah,
and it shouldn't need a date, right?
no,
It doesn't need a date.
no.
Well, the one I'm looking at already says that.
Oh, whoa. So what about the part funds remaining in this restricted account at the end of June shall be
30,
carried over to the same account for the fiscal year following?
I think we have to have that.
Yeah, I think we do.
All of them have that, so.
We do that in the next one.
It's in the next one, yeah. It's in 6,
It's separated. It's in the next one.
Is it?
which we're gonna have to do the same thing in the next one, is just take out the word new and put the account number.
Good point. I'm doing that with my pen right now.
But I think this was one of the instances where we met first and we did the wording, and then the council repeated theirs.
I
And that's
agree.
why they were different.
So we did
Well-
ours, and yeah, and then they came in and
Right.
muddied the water.
Well, but if you look, I recall Justin making this point, is that for all the town council ones, they were being very explicit to say any money left over in these restricted accounts will roll forward into the new fiscal year. So that's, again, that kind of legal issue that we have right now as to whether every year in the resolutions we have to state this, or whether it's assumed it stays in the account.
which is which was what they were doing on the council at that time. They were
Correct.
trying to be lawyers and nail it down tight.
Correct.
All right, so what did we do with 5? We've changed new to an account number.
Yeah.
I move that we vote to resolve the account number 5540 to 6794 paving, drainage, curbing and sidewalk shall be a restricted account to be used solely for the purpose of paving, drainage, curbing and sidewalks.
Second,
Okay, we have a motion, and who is second?
I
Jen?
did.
Jen Jocelyn. Okay, so do we need any further discussion? Joe?
I'm opposed.
Okay, shall we take a vote? All those in favor? Ruth? Everyone's in favor. Joe Souza is opposed. So that motion carries. Number 6, resolve that any unencumbered funds as of June 30th, 2021 will be returned to the general fund with the exception of Public Works Department unencumbered funds that will be placed in the restricted paving, drainage, curbing, sidewalks account 55406794.
So moved.
Jennifer Rashley made the motion. Do we have a second?
Second,
Jen Jocelyn seconds. Discussion, Joe?
Opposed.
Okay. Any further discussion?
Why are you opposed to these? Same reason, Joe? You don't want them on there?
No, I just think the money should just go back into the general fund. We're gonna need it. We're gonna have a lot of shortfalls. So every dollar we can get back into that general fund is gonna help us next year.
Yeah.
And, you know,
I think
cash
we
is fungible.
Well-
need to take the word new out of this resolution.
and just put the account number.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how Jay read it.
That's how I read it. I
Oh, did you?
I
I'm
just
sorry.
ignored the new. So keep in mind, this is going to be this one will kick in at the end of 2021, not at the end of, we already have it for the end of 2020.
Right.
So it's not going to help us with the budget.
You're right. What the hell am I thinking?
I don't know, Joe.
I'm
I
brain
thought I
dead.
just mentioned that. I think what you're getting is you're doing what everybody's doing. You're worried about now, and we're talking
Yeah.
about the future. You got it?
Yeah, I don't know what the hell I was thinking. It is for next year's budget. I'm going brain dead here. It must be getting late.
How's your bedtime?
It's okay. We're all tired. We're all
Stress.
set up. All right. So do we have a
Here,
motion?
Joe, hold up your glass.
Oh, Jesus, sure.
Gary came to the very.
This is an official public meeting. You can't do that.
I didn't see the
Ginger
rule
ale,
on
for
I
Christ's
didn't put
sakes.
the bottle to my lips.
COVID rule.
camera.
I don't even drink, so don't worry about me.
Okay. So where did we get a motion on this?
Yep.
I moved and Jen Jocelyn seconded.
Okay. So we've had our discussion. Joe's away. He's back online. He knows where we're at. All those in favor?
I'm still opposed.
Out of principle or what?
Who knows what the future brings? I don't know.
Okay. The motion carries with Joe opposed. Number 7, resolve that the town, once all provisions of the charter and accounting requirements are met, shall transfer out of the unexpended municipal expense appropriation determined as of June 30th, 2021 is what it'll be, 25% to the restricted capital 0980-9999 expenditure account.
I think we should get rid of this one.
I agree.
This, to Joe's point, we don't want to reserve it. We want the money available to spend. It should go back into,
Remember, this is going to affect us at the end of next cycle, not this one.
well,
I agree. I think we should still remove this one.
Okay. So, any further discussion on this, opinions?
I disagree. I think we should keep it.
Oh my God.
She just tried to spice
You're
it up,
just
Joe,
doing that
already.
just,
I'm just kidding.
No, I know where you live and I
Okay.
know where to find you.
I'm muting now.
are you sure you're not drinking, Joe?
He's just having too much fun.
Yes.
The rest of
Because
us are
it's the
suffering.
longest budget season ever.
Oh, God.
I
It's
think
not
it
done.
is.
Yeah,
I think
so
it is.
this is
Joe will
only
know.
round two, round three, and maybe 4 or 5, who knows?
Okay, so as read, all those in favor of this resolution? All
Did
those
we even get
opposed?
we didn't get a motion
get
and
a
a second.
motion.
I thought we did.
No, we didn't do this one, so it just moved
Yeah.
on.
Maybe I was listening to the locomotion. I don't know.
If
Uh,
we're,
All right,
but-
so we have a motion on this resolution.
So if there's no motion, it just doesn't go forward.
Yeah.
I move to strike this motion from the list.
Let's do that. We'll move to remove it. Okay,
Second,
so we have a motion to remove it. A second.
that was me.
Joe Souza seconds it.
Great.
Okay, all those in favor of removing this resolution? Ruth? Okay, that's unanimous. We are removing resolution number 7. Brings us down to number 8. Oh, wait a minute, removed.
I make a motion that we remove resolution number 8.
I second. I don't think we need it.
Remember, there's a lot of discussion about this last year.
I know, but
So
you know what? There was
if-
a lot of discussion about it. There was a lot of discussion with the school committee about the legality of it. And also too, I mean, they did the work. So I don't see, and also too, what we're talking about putting in capital is not a large dollar amount. I think we talked about $50,000. I just don't think we need to add this on there. I think they can manage $50,000.
I'll just say this. I think that, we do this for a lot of other capital. I know it's not a lot of money, but I think a lot of things got done and, it didn't seem like it caused, I know that some people complained about it, but it seemed like everything went okay according to the treasurer, like they didn't have any problems using it. So.
Yeah, there was no legal opinion that it was wrong or anything like that. I'm just pointing out.
I think it started out as a knee-jerk reaction.
Well, I also think what was embedded in it was the decision that we wanted to see spending on those capital items, and we wanted to make it clear that they were capital, not operating in terms of the maintenance of effort. So that was an important one. And so now we're at $50,000. It's a small amount, but before it, last year, it was in the hundreds of thousands that we were putting towards it. And we wanted to make it clear, at least that's what I recall,
Right.
that
I think you're right.
that these were capital items, not operating.
So I think it has become apparent that whether we have this or not, that's the case.
Mhm.
If it's defined as a capital item, it cannot magically become operational and become a part of maintenance of effort.
That
I thought
was the
I thought we had a
discussion that-
legal opinion on that said just that.
Said what, Joe? What I
that,
just said?
Even the school is restricted as far as capital. They can only spend it on capital. I mean,
Yeah,
they could transfer everything else, but capital is capital.
that's pretty
And
much.
capital can't become part of maintenance of effort. That was one of the things that was clarified.
So
So
you
it
don't
sounds
think it
like
matters,
We
Joe?
don't
And-
need it.
Jeff Karen brought that up in spades, and I think that was his big concern, and I think it's become apparent that it's not a concern.
I think as many resolves as we can remove from the docket is, if this is one I'll vote to remove.
I'm going to make a resolution that requires Joe to vote with the rest of us.
Second that. Be fun to vote no on it.
All right, so do we want to make a motion to remove this resolution?
I'll make a motion to remove resolution number 8.
I'll second it.
Sherry Aker made the resolution, Deb Janick seconded it. So all in favor, I think we've had our discussion. All those in favor of removing Budget Committee Resolution number 8?
I'm going to vote against.
Okay, Ruth is opposed. Sherry? Yeah, okay. The rest of us are vote yes. Ruth Hollenbach is opposed. Where does that leave us? Tom, did you go over the
What about
tax
Tom
levy?
Hamilton?
Oh, I'm sorry, Tom.
What?
Did you want to say something?
Oh, no.
Tom Haley, did you want to show us where we're at currently with what we know at this instant in time with the levy work?
Jay, do we want to add, since Jennifer was saying that if we do all of our resolutions, then they can just kind of look at ours. I mean, do we want to add the one about like pay as you throw, or do we want to just not worry about that?
Oh, didn't we do that?
I don't think so.
No, we didn't.
No, we should, because that's one we really want to keep.
Number 2.
Why didn't we have it?
I don't think we thought of, I mean, it wasn't, I think that this was a new one. I don't know. Maybe it's not new. I haven't been around long
I think
enough.
it's always just been a council resolution.
Well, what do you think? Should we adopt this one?
What do you think?
If
I
they're
think we
doing-
should.
Why?
Yeah,
Can't hurt.
let's do it.
Okay. So we're on Town Council Resolution number 2. Resolved to the extent not in conflict with the budget proposal opposed at this FTR, any and all revenues raised by the town through the pay-as-you-throw program in fiscal year 2021 shall be restricted for landfill closure consistent with the prior year. Funds remaining in this restricted account at the end of June 30th, 2020.
20.
Yeah, shall be carried over into the same account for fiscal, oh, what happened here?
Yeah. So
For
anything.
fiscal
that-
year 2021, okay.
Okay. So moved.
Second,
Okay. Who was second?
I did.
Joe Souza seconds. Okay, any further discussion on this? Jen Joslin, you lit up. Did you want something?
No, my chair's just squeaking. That made me.
Knock it
Not
off.
rocking.
Okay, so we'll take a vote. All those in favor of this resolution? That's unanimous. So that motion carries.
Jay, if we have it the same one as the town council, they'll both be on the ballot?
I'm sorry?
If we have
No.
the same one as the town council, the exact same resolution, will they both be on the ballot?
They just don't put theirs.
Ours will be,
Okay. you.
from what I understand, Budget Committee resolutions take precedence over town council ones.
As far as being on the ballot, thank you very much.
I'm pretty sure that this resolution started as a town council resolution. And like we do, they just kept bringing it forward every year.
Okay,
So there's nothing else on the town council ones that we need to play with. Okay, so thanks for bringing that one to my attention. So Tom, You want to buzz us through where we are exactly at this point with the tax levy worksheet?
Let me bring it up.
Not that we're going to do anything with it, but it's not bad to know where we're at.
Yeah, so, oops. You can hear me, right?
Yeah, we hear you. I hear you.
Yeah, we did briefly go through this kind of on the fly last time, but I went through it and scrubbed it and made sure that everyone's comments from the tax assessor's office and were incorporated. We had several iterations on, am I getting these numbers right? Or, you know, what are you accounting for last year's numbers and stuff like that. One thing that I think threw me off a little bit was that I had been using the numbers from the budget committee's proposal as the hard numbers from last year. It really was the petitioner's numbers that I should have been using, which I don't have a spreadsheet for, but was commented on by the tax assessor, treasurer. I believe I've incorporated all their comments, and again, we're where we said we were last time at 3.89% increase, you know, just under the 4% allowable for a levy increase right there. And that's attributable to, we cut approximately a couple $100,000 off the capital. And we had to increase 80,000, also cut actually 80,000 off of our revenue. And those were the big changes that brought us just under the 4%.
Tom?
Yes.
Can I ask a question about the increase? What percentage of that increase is the recycling center increase?
Wow. Good question.
You know, because, you know, we're talking about how much it went up, but that was such a huge cost this year. I think that, you know, drives the tax rate going up.
It wasn't just a recycling center though, Jen. It's also effectively the doubling of the cost to deal with trash.
Right. So that's what I'm trying to figure out of that 3.89, because, you know, the town council had, you know, made a lot of cuts and came in with fair. You know, we went up 2% on the schools, which I personally still think is fair. So I'm trying to figure out, like, out of that 3.89 increase, how much of that was driven by the trash contract and by the recycling?
Yeah, so what would I have to do? I'd look at those two items on the expense sheet and see how they differed over time. Roughly, I think. No, I can't give you a roughly. I'd have to look at it and crank, you know, diddle with those numbers and see how much of a bottom line change there would be ripple down wise. I think that would be a gamble with your time.
It just food for thought, like, you know, how much it drove that increase. And again, it's an expense that we can't get out of.
Right. No, that's nice to know. It's nice to know if we could just point to one thing and there's the big thing this year. But yeah, it'll probably rival just the outright percentage increases on the school and the municipal, I'm sure. But anyway, what I'll do is I'll just flatline those, you know, pretend we didn't have those and see what that would do. And I'll just shoot you all an email.
Thanks,
Thank
Tom.
you, Tom.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tom. Tom,
Yeah.
I was in the same spot where I had been using our numbers from last year and hadn't put in the petitioner's budget, which prevailed.
Yes, right.
Yeah, I did the same thing and I was going nuts. You know, just off the top of my head, and don't take this as possible. It was probably like 1.6%, maybe.
So
This is a swag guess.
And then, the other, because there were other things that drove it too. There were increases across the board and to police and fire and other capital things that drove into that 3. So,
Yeah, contracts. I mean, there's multiple things, but the lion's share of it was the closing of the landfill, which translates into a lot more money to take it to Johnson. And then the cost, which is still kind of up in the air of what the recycling center might cost if they don't give us an extension at this time. Joe, what? Why are you back in the waiting room? All right, so, well, there's no point in having a meeting tomorrow night, is there? So I got to get on the horn and cancel that. So as Chris said, the way this reads now, 65 days after the state approves the statewide budget, that would be when we would have the FTR, which means 44 days before that, which would be 21 days after the state approves their budget, is when we would have to turn in ours. So you might as well say 2 weeks at the latest after the state drops their budget on us. We have to start meeting again.
Okay.
Who's that? That sound about right?
Sounds good.
Jay, could you repeat when we would
Yeah.
start
Yeah.
meeting again? When was it that we would start meeting again?
Well, I was trying to figure that out. So Chris said
We have
the
3.
resolution, Tricia's,
Yeah.
the town council president's resolution, or whatever, says 65 days after the state approves the state budget. That's when we'll have the FTR. Our charter says we got to do submit the budget 44 days before the FTR. So subtract 44 to 65. So that means 21 days after the state delivers their budget. That would be about when we had, and we don't know what the date's going to be. These are just numbers.
So then the other
Yeah.
thing, Jay, is that we won't know when the state finishes their budget until they finish it. So is
Right.
the day they finish it or the day after, then we need to submit when we're going to meet next, so that we
Yes.
can start meeting. So we'll really have about 2.5 weeks to actually meet.
Right. And so I'm sure we'll be, I don't know, I'm sure I will be one of the first people that knows when that happens. So like what I've tried to do consistently throughout this whole thing is as soon as I know, you know.
Okay.
I
And
do the
so
best I can.
it'll probably be sometime in June we'll be notified, because that's usually when the state finishes their budget.
I think the executive order says something like the FTR is going to be moved to like June 24th or something like that.
I don't think they can come up with a date like that.
I don't know. I could be wrong, but that may be, I think that's what it's.
Well, that's what it
Well, let's look at it this way.
The first
If the state were to approve the state budget on June 30th, let's just say they did. That means 65 days from then would be July, August, September 3rd, maybe. That would be the date to the FTR. Take 44 days off of that. That would be when we'd have to submit the budget. Take a couple of weeks off of that. That's when we'd have to start meeting.
We're gonna have my birthday on Zoom.
All of us.
So, you know, like I said, it all depends on what the state does. But anyway,
Okay.
if I were to find out on the 15th of June at 8 o'clock in the morning, believe me, you guys will know by 10. So. Anything else we want to vent on?
I move to adjourn.
Second.
Wow. Okay. So I will, like I said, I will.
We can debate that.
No, we're not going to debate it.
Oh,
All those
wait,
in
Deb
favor?
said something.
oh.
That's unanimous. Okay, so just hang on to your hats,